A very good day to you people. My name is Mohit, and guys, this is part 2 of Dreamweaver CS5 compound rules. Let me start by clicking on this create new HTML button. Okay guys, let me click on this plus button, which will pop up a dialog box for the new CSS rule, and then I will drop down the contextual selector to a compound. Okay, now every compound rule is actually based on a selection. Let's see what kind of a selection I want to base it on. Let me say a TR stands for table row, a colon, and then let me say nth child. Guys, if you remember from the last part or the last tutorial, part 1, we talked about the first letter, the first line, and the first child. Okay, I'm going to take this a little forward, this concept a little forward. So I'm talking with the nth child, and then in brackets I'm going to say odd. Alright, and let me then say okay, but before that let me also make sure that the rule that I'm creating is actually going into a new style sheet. Alright, let me say okay. Dreamweaver will want to know the name of the style sheet that I'm creating, so my CSS rules. Alright, and all that I want to do here is go to the background category and say the background color should be a £FCC. Then let me say okay. Guys, so what will happen is when I'll drop a table now inside Dreamweaver, okay, it will have every odd numbered row a color which is a hash FCC, as you can see in the live view. Okay, wonderful. Similarly guys, if I were to right click here and say edit selector, and instead of odd if I say even, I'm sure you understand what will happen. Okay, now the rows which are second and fourth get the formatting. Okay, wonderful. Let me click on this plus button once again for the new CSS rule, drop down the contextual selector to a compound, and this time let me say TR for table row once again, a colon, and then last child. Just the way we have the first child pseudo selector, we also have the last child. So last child, say okay, and this time let's say a background color of a hash FFC. I'm gonna say okay, and guys, as you can notice earlier it had the last row had a color of hash FCC. Now it has a hash FFC because the rule that was created last has taken precedence over the rule that was created a little earlier. Wonderful. Alright, what else can I do? Let me click on the new CSS rules button, rule button once again, drop down the contextual selector to a compound, type TR for table row colon, and nth child. Okay, and then actually give the number, specify the number. So I'm telling Dreamweaver that I want the third row or the third child to have a specific formatting, which we will soon see. Let me then go to the background section of the category and say I want the row to have a background color of £9C6. Let me say okay, and that's exactly what has happened, guys. Okay, so using the nth child, even, nth child, odd, and then nth child a specific number, I can control the table, and it's not only the table row that I can control so many other elements. I'm sure you understand that. Wonderful. Okay, let's see what else can I do with the compound rules. There's so much more that we can do with compound rules, guys. Okay, so dropping the contextual selector to a compound, and then let me say table square brackets, and inside the brackets Let me pass in an attribute something like rules. Okay, close the bracket, say OK, and let me then give it a color, a font color of, let's say, £039, and say OK. I haven't explained what exactly I've done. I will do so in a little while. Let me come off the live view. Okay, what has happened? What's going on, guys? I need to pause the video to check what exactly is wrong. Beg your pardon. Okay guys, I'm back. I really don't know what went wrong, but all I had to do was I had to close the document after saving it and reopen it again, and this is the way it looks. Let me go to the live view. This is the formatting, and this is the table without the formatting. All very good. Okay, so guys, I just created a rule wherein I said table, and then I said the square brackets, and inside that I wrote rules, and I'll explain it in a little while. Alright guys, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this line right at the bottom, which is the green line which says 400, which is the width of the table. I'm going to right click, and then I'm going to say edit table. Okay, and then guys, if you notice, there's something called frame and rules out here. Now what it does is the frame actually controls the way the outer border of the table looks like. Okay, whether I want the border to be on all the four sides like a box, then I choose box. Whether I choose box or border, it's just the same thing. It means that I want the border on all the four sides. Okay, if I say LHS, it means I want the border only on the left hand side. RHS means the right hand side, and H sides means the horizontal sides, left and right sides. Okay, below means below, above means above, and void means that I don't want the outer borders at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose void. Okay, and as far as the rules attribute is concerned, I'm going to choose calls for columns. And okay, so for the inside borders or the inside rules, I just want columns, it to be applied to the columns. Okay, so I'm going to say OK, and let me show it to you in the live view what has exactly happened. So guys, as you can notice, the outer border has gone and only the inner borders remain, because I had created I had passed in an attribute called rules. If I take you to the table tag, you can see that it has this attribute called rules, which has a value calls for column. Okay, so basically when I create a compound rule which is table square bracket rules, it means that if your table has this attribute called rules, then you should apply the rule, which is it should have a font color of a £039, but sadly my table does not have any text, so let me pass in some text. Okay, quickly. Alright, let me show it to you in the live view, and that's exactly what has happened, guys. The table now has the font color, which is a £039. Wonderful. Okay, so as long as your table has this specific attribute, the rule will get applied. Alright, there's so much more that I can do with the compound rules. So let me click on this plus button to create a new CSS rule. Drop down the contextual selector to a compound, and then let me say table in the square brackets. Let me say rules is equal to rows. Okay, although guys, if you remember that I've actually set the rules equal to calls for columns and not equal to rows. So basically what I'm telling Dreamweaver is, if my table has an attribute called rules and it has a value called rows, only then the rules should get applied. So whatever rule that I'm going to create now will not get applied, because obviously the rules is not equal to rows. Let me say OK, and then guys, let me say that if the table has an attribute called rules and it's equal to rows, then the font color for the table should be a £900, and say OK. Let me see if the rule has actually gotten applied. Obviously it did not get applied, guys. That's because the rule table, the attribute rules is not equal to rows, but it's actually, if we check in the code view once again, rules is equal to calls for columns. So obviously this rule has been disabled automatically by Dreamweaver. But if I were to go here, select this rule, right click, beg your pardon, if I were to click here and then modify the rule from a rows to a calls, okay guys, as you can see that the font color has now changed from a blue to a red, bluish to a reddish shade. Okay, now the last rule, which is table rules is equal to calls, has taken precedence over the table rules compound rule. Okay, so in Dreamweaver, guys, whichever rules is created in the end takes precedence if there is a conflict. So since this rule holds good as well as this rule holds good, the rule that was created in the end, okay, the latest rule takes precedence, and that's the reason the font color is now a #900. All very good, wonderful. Okay, the moment I come off the live, I don't know, something goes wrong and there's an issue out here. I really don't know what's going on. So what I'll do is, guys, I think I will terminate my tutorial here. Okay, and I think I'll need to make a third part for this tutorial as well, because it's a lengthy subject. Compound rules is a lengthy subject. Meanwhile, I'll try and understand why whenever I come with a live view something goes wrong drastically. Maybe Dreamweaver is not able to digest so many and you know, such complicated compound rules. Okay, so I'll see you next time with yet another part of this tutorial. Peace till then. Bye bye.